Now, you mentioned just right now, I've been hit by Ennis, I've been hit by Spence, and for some reason, Ben, when he hit me, he put me down.
He put me down.
With that being said, then, do you have a suspicion that something might have been off with the whole situation
Hey,
going into
man,
that fight?
you know what? Now that you look at it, you go, okay, well, he tested positive and all these things come out. You go, okay, the guy's confidence. Where does he get that confidence? Like, his confidence is through the roof, man. Yes, he's a hard worker, but anybody can be a phenomenal hard worker if they use substance to promote that. I now question it, and I now go, why get hit by Conor, and I'm out of it, right? Yeah, man, it brings up the question. I cannot help it. I'm not a sore loser. I'm not a bad loser. But I cannot help it now to bring up the question and say, man, I cannot remember. If I'm thinking clearly right now, we did not get VADA tested before the fight. We did not get VADA tested before the fight. We took a urine sample afterwards, but we did not do any testing before the fight.
The testing protocol for your guys' fight, was it just the simple UCAD testing?
Urine, the urine. After the fight, simple urine testing, like usually, yeah. But there was no testing before, or even in training camp, I had no testing. And I'm a clean athlete. My biggest fear in my career is to ever test positive for anything and then be looked at as a cheater. So I go in it clean, and you would think that whoever you are fighting goes with the same mentality and they play fair. I like Conor Benn, we mates, but how do one look past this? I cannot help but to bring up the question and say, man, did I lose fairly? Did I really lose to a better guy? Did I lose to a guy that clearly was fair on the night? Now I'm suspicious.
Given what's going on right now, people aren't sure if the event should or should not be canceled.
Yo, what's good, family? It's your man, the YB, back once again. So we just heard there from your man's Chris Van Heerden. Now, as far as I'm aware, Chris Van Heerden is the last Donny that Conor Benn, Conor Juicen, Conor Tren smoked on. Now, the reason I'm going on to BoxRec is to check what belt this was for, because I was under the guise that Conor Benn was fighting in the WBC, and that was really part of the reason why I had more confidence in Conor Benn, for being clean. I thought, well, he's in the WBC, they do year-round testing with VADA, so I know that if he failed one in September, shortly before that there'll be a clean one from VADA. It turns out Conor Benn has been all WBA. I don't see no WBCs on here, to be quite frank. None of them. They're all WBA belts. So, this certainly is WBA belt. WBA Continental Welter. Chris Van Heerden. And now, Chris Van Heerden's just leaked the fact that there weren't no testing. There was only urine testing, which means it was only UCAD. UCAD dopey looking asses, they only do urine, which I've now learnt from Conor Benn's juicy doctor, only holds information for 72 hours. So what you popped 2 weeks ago is not going to be in your urine. And Chris Van Heerden saying there was no in-camp testing. This is shocking. I could have sworn Eddie Hearn says for every fight, yeah, we do full VADA testing. What happened to that one? I don't know, you man tell me. What happened to all the fight? I'm sure I've heard Eddie Hearn grandstanding. Oh yeah, my name's Matt Troom, my name's DAZN, and we pay for extra VADA testing for all of our fighters. Oh, what happened to that then? I don't know. Is it possible Chris Van Heerden's bugging and whatever? It's possible. And that's why it's so important. Team Hearn, I've been saying for a long time, and I wonder, about a lot of these media guys. I've been saying for the last week or for the last 4 days, when is Conor Benn and his team going to come out and give us the dates? I.e., when he failed his test. I.e., when was the next test before that? When was the VADA test before his failed test? And when was the VADA test after the failed test? That's all we need to know. And yet, I'm not even sure of the date of the failed one yet. I think I've heard something about September 23rd was when people were notified. I'm not sure of the actual pop date. I think the pop date might be September 5th. But again, where's Eddie Hearn at? And Coogan sat down with Eddie for an hour and didn't ask any specifics. Like, Eddie, Conor Benn's got this failed test. Has Conor Benn been involved in year-round VADA testing? Has Conor Benn, how many VADA tests has Conor Benn had since and before the failed test? Can you give us the dates of all of the VADA tests Conor Benn passed before and after this dodgy test? You know what I'm saying? Instead, Coogan goes there and just waffles. Bottom line, I can't stand wafflers in this industry. I get it though. I'm not a journalist, yeah, but basic things. The 5 W's. What, when, where, how. Do you know what I'm saying? That's the basic thing people with half a brain use. Yeah? What, when, where, how, when. You know, all them ones there. Acronym. Big acronym. 100%. The 5 W's. Instead, Coogan goes in there and he takes the 5 waffle U's. Just waffles. No information. No information was extracted from the Eddie Hearn interview. Coogan sat there and let Eddie Hearn just waffle his ears off. And Coogan was like, yeah. Like a, what's they call it? What's that thing called? What's that animal called? Yeah, that animal, that one there. The seal. Coogan, you're a big seal-looking ass. Just going along with whatever Eddie Hearn throws you. Eddie Hearn throws you some scrap meat. Yeah? Big round seal bent leg having ass. And I'm sick of the lack of transparency here. This is really easy to clear up in my mind. I'm happy to back Conor Benn. If Conor Benn came out and said the dodgy test was September 5th, I had a clean one a week before and a clean one a week after, I'm coming out on the record. Not that it matters, but I'm just saying. I'm going to come out on the record and say this guy's clean, it's bullshit. Instead, and that's what worries me, every day that goes past here, why aren't his team? How haven't his team come out and disclosed all the clean tests they've had before and after? Isn't that the first thing you'd do? Yeah, we got a dirty test, but look, we had 2 tests before that, a week before, and it was clean, so it's bullshit. Instead, we've got 2 hours of interviews from all these clowns, and no one saying nothing of substance, just waffling. And now Chris Van Heerden says, Mr. Eddie Hearn, all my fighters, I swear down, yeah, I've heard more or less every fight camp, we hear Eddie Hearn ranting about how much VADA costs him. And next thing we know, Chris Van Heerden, let's not forget people, Conor Benn is one of his premier athletes. So it follows that, wait there a minute, Conor Benn's arguably Eddie Hearn's number 2, behind AJ, in terms of cash cows. So wait there a minute, Mr. Eddie Hearn, I pay 30 grand per VADA test. You telling me that you pay VADA 30 grand for VADA everywhere else, but Mr. number 2 in your stable, all of a sudden you've forgotten to do it? That's what Van Heerden's saying. And that was Conor Benn's last fight in April or May this year. That's a problem. Especially when it wouldn't be so much of a problem, but Conor Benn was removed from the WBC rankings in January because he missed a test or something like that. Now, I was under the guise that since then he'd resolved it with the WBC and he was back into the program. I just kind of assumed that. Oops. And he hasn't even been fighting for a WBC belt. So there's really no evidence of anything. There's no evidence Conor Benn has any, at this point in time, there's no evidence Conor Benn has any clean VADA tests. All we know is about the one that went wrong. Now, we've heard Conor Benn and Eddie Hearn say, oh, he's had clean tests since. No, I haven't heard. Listen, you man tell me. I haven't heard anyone specify if they were UCAD or VADA. Yeah? All I've heard them saying is, oh, we've had clean tests since. Listen, that's what worries me. Why aren't they being blatant? Because we know the UCAD tests are weak. Yeah? And let's not forget, people, you could say, well, YB, Conor Benn and Chris Eubank, they signed up for VADA, so they must have had more than just one. Guess what? The Benn versus Eubank fight wasn't officially signed until like August 20th. Oops. So if the Benn versus Eubank fight wasn't signed until August 20th, and Conor Benn pops on September 5th, it follows to me that could have easily been the first and only test, if you get what I'm saying. September 5th could have easily been the first VADA test, bearing in mind the contract wasn't signed until August 20th. Yeah? So things right now is looking not good for Conor Benn. Never mind the fact that Van Heerden's saying he was able to hold the power of Errol Spence. Now we know Errol Spence isn't a raw, prolific puncher. He's not a one-bang artist, but to be quite frank, no one at 147 is. Go on, what? For how many years? Probably all the way back to, I'm not even sure who. Some people say Julian Jackson, but I think he might have been bigger anyway. But yeah, listen, at 147, in the history of boxing, who has been a prolific one-punch guy? No one. Van Heerden was in there for 12 rounds against Errol Spence. He held the power. Now, to be fair, he did get, I'm not sure what it was. I think he may have been bamboozled by the up-and-coming guy. What's his name? Boots Ennis. Jaron Boots Ennis is like the new up-and-coming guy. He's almost like the USA version of Conor Benn. Now, Van Heerden got stopped, but it was I think he may have got cut or something like that in the first round. But apparently, he wasn't neurologically compromised. He wasn't doing a stanky leg. He was kind of like a TKO kind of thing. So Van Heerden saying, I've held Errol Spence for 12 rounds. I've been able to keep my bonnet straight against Jaron Ennis. I go in there with Conor Benn, and he hit me once, and I've never been buzzed like he hit me. Now, I'm not really into these speculative ones, truth be known. Yeah? Everyone hasn't been buzzed until they have. And to be fair to Conor Benn, whatever we say about him, yeah, unlike Errol Spence, unlike Jaron Ennis to some extent, Conor Benn was the only guy to come up to go in the ring and actually set about Van Heerden. Do you understand? What's to say if Errol Spence had the same mentality, i.e. no respect, that Conor Benn had, he may have hit him the same way. Do you know what I'm saying? So we do to some extent have to salute or give Conor Benn that respect. Yeah? It's not Conor Benn's fault that Errol Spence it's not Conor Benn's fault that Errol Spence doesn't know how to finish his dinner. Yeah? But then again, it also brings the argument up, well, why is it Conor Benn, a dude with no experience as such, a dude with no amateur background, how does that guy, a dude who's gone life and death with random journeymen, how does that guy gain the confidence to go in there against Chris Van Heerden and just start setting about him with, with bad intentions? Where's that coming from? People also, myself included, have speculated, why is Conor Benn always angry? Yeah? Conor Benn was just roid raging on his missus. He's always bubbling up. Oops. Yeah? That's also something Chris Van Heerden said in a separate interview recently, in the last few days. Yeah? He said he went in there with Conor Benn, he hit me, he buzzed me for the first time in my career, and I couldn't work out why he was so bang on it. Oops. Is it possible Conor Benn's dodgy doctor has turned the nozzle on his testosterone? Yeah? Got him feeling like a full bull. Conor Benn's dodgy doctor has turned him into a 1750s Mandingo bull, 100%. That's what this guy's a legend. Van Heerden's a legend. Some next doctor has made Conor Benn go full 1780s Mandingo bull mode. Yeah? He going in there, he looking to take someone's head off, clean off as well. On some Calvin Candy thing, 100%. At this point, all we're doing is speculating. Now, at arm's length, I'd like to say, or not in normal circumstances, I'd say boxing isn't mathematical. You can't say Errol Spence went 12 rounds and Conor Benn chinned me, therefore he's juiced. You can't do that. But in these circumstances, there are definitely questions. Now, in fairness to Ben, even when Ben, was going life and death with bums, he still did so in an aggressive manner. It's not like Conor Benn was shitting his pants and then he turned into the crusher. Now, it does have to be said, Conor Benn didn't have as much power, but people, myself included, have kind of gassed up Conor Benn's power recently. But when you actually go back and look at his resume, okay, Conor Benn's been active. So in 4 months, he got 2 stoppages. But look, before that, Adrian Granados, which was only 3 months before the Algieri fight, so only 6 months before Van Heerden got stopped here, he went 10 rounds with Granados. I watched that fight. He went 10 rounds with Formella. So that tells me that, what are they saying? What are the allegations here? Is it possible Conor Benn's just been juicing for the last 9 months? Which could be the case. Why do I say that? Well, we know the WBC didn't pull Conor Benn until January this year. So is it possible Conor Benn started juicing in November or October, when his WBC thing was still active, and then he got pulled into January, and then obviously the Van Heerden fights happened? Is that possible? I don't know. But to sit there and to say that Conor Benn's juiced is the reason Van Heerden got smoked, you'd have to say that Conor Benn started juicing after September. Because guess what? Any juice that he had wasn't working against Granados. And I watched that fight. Conor Benn was just as aggressive as he was against these two. For whatever reason, Granados could hold the power. I think, for me personally, I think it's a bit of a stretch. That Conor Benn just magically started juicing. I mean, let's think scientifically here. From what I understand about juices, in 3 months, you ain't gonna get. It's not gonna work like that in 3 months. Now, of course, if you're doing a full unregulated cycle, i.e., a litre of testosterone per week, then you'll make mad gains in 3 months. But you got to remember, these guys have got to be dipping in and dipping out of UCAD tests. So it's all got to be low, it's all got to be low level stuff. So to be doing low level stuff, you ain't going to get them kind of gains. It's not going to turn you into the Hulk in 3 months, in my opinion. So I think that narrative's a bit played out. But one thing's for sure. If, for example, I'm pretty confident now, Conor Benn will be on his P's and Q's. He ain't going to be taking if he is dodgy, he's going to be cleaned up right now. So the true test will be, is Conor Benn's next fight. If we see Conor Benn, and all of a sudden he's got a smile on his face. All of a sudden, normally Conor Benn walks around like this. He's screw facing, he's roid raging, and whatever else. If we see his personality change, if we see his fight style all of a sudden, I mean, look at AJ. I've heard allegations about AJ in the past. I didn't think nothing of it, but the more I think about things, this guy went from Superman, and now he looks broken, doesn't he? Now, from what I understand about the juices, juice will do that. If you've been performing pumped full, you'll feel like Superman. Shots will bounce off. We know that for a fact. Look at Vitor Belfort. Vitor Belfort was clean. He get chinned by everyone. He can't hurt no one. He juices. He's knocking everyone out, and shots are bouncing off. To be quite frank, that sums up AJ's career. AJ, juiced out of his mind, allegedly. Shots bounce off. He marching forward. He's also got a lot more gas tank. Now, with no juice, no gas tank, no ambition, no power, no anything. So yeah, there are similarities, but like I said, the proof will be in the pudding. What happens in his next fight? What happens with this situation, to be quite frank? But yeah, really, the next fight is what will be the proof. If we see all of a sudden he's more, all of a sudden he's not as ambitious. All of a sudden he's thinking twice about leaping in. Conor Benn's renowned for slipping and rolling, coming forward and just setting about you. That's the best way of putting it. When I watch Conor Benn fight, setting about someone is what comes to mind. He sets about his opponent. That for me will change if he's suddenly clean. I'm not sure he's going to have that level of, you know what I mean? He proper wants to wick you down. Yeah? Anyway, let me know your thoughts. It's your man, the YB. 100%. Smash the like button, subscribe, and your boy will be back.